This is the Winton Motor Raceway in Victoria. Welcome back to our telecast just in time for the Yokohama production touring car race. And we'll be seeing Brad Jones in action again. Not quite as many horses under the bonnet as we saw earlier in the Super Sedan race with the Monza. But nonetheless, he'll give this field plenty of hurry up because he is on pole position again. Let's check the grid for the event. As they come round to line up, Brad Jones in the Stallion in position number 1. Sharing the front row, also in the Stallion, Peter Fitzgerald. On the second row, car 64, Des Gibbs, and car 8, Mike Glynn, pair of Stallions again. Then car 4, Leo Geoghegan, another Stallion. And we get to position 6, car 56, before we find a Commodore with Ken Youlden at the wheel. Then on the next row, Tony Gregg and Greg East, followed by Ron Eisen and Jeff Newton. And then Peter Granger and Greville Arnell, both in Cordias. They're the top 12 qualifiers, and another 7 besides that. Andrew McKay, Richard White, Lindsay Steniken, Jeff David, Greg Zink, Gavin James and David Morton.
There's Brad Jones in the Perrier Stallion, car number 2. He finished second earlier today in the first heat of this Yokohama production touring car race to this man, Peter Fitzgerald, in car number 3 in the East Side entry. Known to us on the 7 Network for his drives in the Porsche Sports Sedan. And this year concentrating pretty well wholly on his production car act, and behind another couple of Stallions, Des Gibbs from Wagga, just north of here, and Mike Glynn from Benella, in fact, in the Mike Glynn car.
10 laps, 2.03 kilometres around the Winton circuit.
And I think always a good scrap when you have Brad Jones and Peter Fitzgerald on the front line. So the Stallions have struck back at Winton after the Commodore was looking good in the opening rounds, of course, at Amaroo Park in their series. Ready for the start. Flag is up. And away they go off the line, and Peter Fitzgerald getting the best of it and trying to move over the circuit before they get to the first corner. I'll tell you what, Brad, will make it tight as they get in here. Used a bit of the local turf, but that's okay. But Fitzgerald will lead them down to the first turn. Sitting right inside is Brad.
Oh, plenty of jostling.
Yes, to see you later, Pete. And while Pete was trying to recover from all that, Des Gibbs gets up and also tries to carry on here on the outside round the sweeper. If he's got enough horsepower, he'll be able to get away with it.
He gets swept aside.
No, he gets a punch in the back from Fitzgerald.
Does he ever?
Puts him off the line, but he comes back onto Fitzgerald again and says, see you, Pete.
And Des fixes him right up. He's back in 5th, 6th, 7th, and it's good night, Peter. So Brad Jones in the Perrier Stallion comes through.
Guaranteed to change your pal colour.
Phew, he fixed him right up then, didn't he?
That was a bit tight, even into the first corner, but he's back on the road again as they work their way down the back straight. Coming out of Castrol Corner, the run down now to Ollie's S's.
Well, the funny thing is there that Ken Youlden's come out pretty well in the Commodore. He's up into second place.
Gibbs has gone west as well.
Yeah.
In fact, he's back at the tail of the field.
So they both got in strife there as they come round to end lap number 1. Brad Jones with 9 to go this time, being followed by Kent Youlden, then Leo Geoghegan, Mike Glynn, Greg East, then Newton in the Commodore, and then Tony Gregg.
He's laughing. Peter Fitzgerald back 2 behind them as they go across the line. So it has all the makings of a good finish in this Yokohama production touring car race at Winton. There's your race leader in the Perrier Stallion, and it, of course, is Brad Jones.
Plenty of what if Gibbs and Fitzgerald get alongside each other again, they'll be guaranteed not to finish.
Plenty of panel damage on the Perrier car, and both Fitzgerald and Gibbs really came off second hand in that one. That was a pretty fraught sort of an accident. Through that fast sweeping left-hander, there's not too much room for error, and the car's really mobile. This is car 56, Kent Youlden, 5-litre V8 Commodore.
Top qualifying Commodore in the race, came off the 3rd row of the grid.
Not a bad performance to get up into second place by lap 1.
They head up to Castrol Corner, very tight right-hander. That brings them on the run down the back straight here towards the S's. There's Brad Jones in the Perrier Stallion, well clear at this stage, in fact opening the gap all the time. Heads down into the right-hander. He's probably about 3 seconds clear. Jones very cleanly through the S's.
3.17 is the gap between those two cars, first and second.
Fitzgerald's back behind Tony Gregg, so he's still got about 6 or 7 cars to dispense with inside the distance. It's only a 10-lapper for the Yokohama Production Car Cup, and he'll be Superman if he can get back on terms with Brad Jones inside the distance.
This is the Mike Glynn stallion, car number 8, driven by one of the local drivers here, very close to the Winton Raceway. He drove brilliantly last year in December at the Winton 300 kilometre production race here for a fine finish in the stallion.
Peter Fitzgerald and Des Gibbs, who were involved in that first lap dust-up, are now back running 8th and 11th, respectively, after being shuffled out to the tail of the field. Archie Jones has opened up a huge break now.
Very stylish young driver. With the brute horsepower of the Monza early this morning, he had that in complete control, and very, very nimble indeed with the Perrier Starion. The more they throw the cars around, the slower they go, of course. And that, in the case of Brad Jones, he's opening up a gap all the time, so he's got to be the tidiest driver in the fields.
Nearly 4 seconds now is the lead. Car 4 is Leo Geoghegan, who prepares this car and the one being driven by Tony Gregg.
Yes, it's good to see Leo back and enjoying his racing again after such a long break. One of Australia's truly great open wheeler stars. Many years ago, retired, said he wasn't going to come back. Didn't take too much to coax him back into production touring racing. He's done very, very well indeed.
Full marks to Sutherland Mitsubishi for backing the team, and they've been at absolutely every race meeting they could have been at this year. It's a big program for Leo and Tony.
Keeping an eye on Peter Fitzgerald. He's up to 6th position after that early incident. Still a long way to go though.
Well, as Leo Geoghegan comes out of Castrol corner, there's the gap to the race leader, Brad Jones, local boy in the Perrier Starion. If anything, the gap starting to close now on Winton.
Well, first to 4th, Jones back to Geoghegan is over 6 seconds.
Be able to see the gap shortly, 1st, 2nd and 3rd. As Brad Jones heads down to the left-hander, the sweeper. That'll give you an indication now of the gap to 2nd. Winton going through. And of course, being tailed quite closely by the Starion as they go down to Mike Glynn this in turn.
Both Brad Jones and Peter Fitzgerald qualified in a time of 1:12.7, which is about a second and a half faster than either of them have ever been around here before. Des Gibbs qualified in 1:13, Glynn 1:13.1, and then Leo 1:13.3, Kent Winton 1:13.4. So he's been the big improver in that Commodore. There's Leo. 1st to 4th, occupying the entire back straight out of Castrol corner, and they're coming up to half race distance.
5 seconds almost, the gap 1st to 2nd now, and Peter Fitzgerald, by the way, is up to 5th position, and Des Gibbs up to 8th, so they're both clawing their way back after having taken care of each other in the first lap. It's taken a lot of pressure off Brad Jones, that incident. He's, after surviving the first corner, having a trouble-free run up front, putting a big space in them.
Mike Glynn doing very well indeed as he moves up behind Kent Winton into the left-hander. Been working away at pegging Winton back for the last few laps. Leo Geoghegan has moved up to be in touch with them.
Yeah, this is the best duel on the racetrack at the moment, this for 2nd, between Winton and Glynn.
These cars, of course, are in production trim. In the case of the turbos, they are allowed to use a little more turbo boost than they can normally use on the road. They have buffed radial tyres. They're free to use any kind of brake pad material they like. Install a roll cage and a harness, and that's about it. You go racing from there. And we're looking forward to seeing a number of new vehicles coming into the play. We've already seen the Toyota Supra in the hands of John Burke from Gosford. It's starting to perform very well now. And news also that the Turbo Mazda RX-7's not too far away.
Yes, it should be a power packet, Neil.
Looks very good on paper. The car appears to be excellently balanced with plenty of horsepower. We'll have to wait and see how it performs. And as I said, I understand there's a couple of them in the country at present. No doubt some of them will start appearing shortly.
The problem for Glynn in this battle here is that he closes up in the parts of the circuit on which he can't pass.
And Leo's getting on the scent of all this as well. So the best scrap in the race, as Gary indicated, is for second on the road, and we're following it for you. There's Leo in 4. Sutherland Mitsubishi entry going through.
I don't know if there's going to be enough race distance left, but Peter Fitzgerald is now running 5th and Des Gibbs has got back to 6th. There's a gap between them.
Brad Jones lapping in a time of 1:13.6, about 1 second off his qualifying pace, so he's still pushing pretty hard. The gap that he enjoys over the rest of the field is now coming up to, it must be 5.5 odd seconds. Just stop the watch now, and it's 5.6 seconds. So Kent Youlden working hard to keep out Mike Glynn. Very hard circuit on brakes and tyres for a car like the Commodore, particularly noticeable in the longer distance races here with the heavier car.
Just under 3 laps remaining as the cars go through the sweeper. The leader goes through the sweeper, pursued by this trio, Youlden, Glynn and Geoghegan. Fitzgerald closing up on that trio, and Gibbs also trying to tag on.
Mike Glynn really having a look on the inside there of Youlden as the Commodore starts to really rock and roll. Whilst there's a lot of wheel work done in the Starions, not a lot of gear changing done with these cars around here, because of course with production cars you're not allowed to alter gear ratios, so you live with what you've got. Out of there in second to change to third and briefly in fourth.
There's Fitzgerald right in the background, you can see.
Well, gee, that's a fine job, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's Gibbs coming round.
So through here it's back to third in the Starion, a quick squiggle through the S's, and they hold third all the way through the pit straight.
Brad Jones meantime has crossed the start-finish line with 2 laps to go.
Well, Glynn just about as close with Youlden. There's Fitzy.
It's been a good drive, this.
Yes, I guess he and Gibbs will rue the first lap of this race. They're little coming together over on the back straight. Hard to judge points. It goes who was in the right or the wrong. Yes, they were both right on one tackle and wrong on the other.
This is the best part of the circuit in these production cars, through this sweeping left-hander. Plenty of power on. You can see the attitude of the cars really having a lean. It's like a double apex left-hander. And then a little squiggle into the right again unsettles the car and requires a fair bit of skill, and that's one point where you make a change according to the Starion drivers. It's back to second there, and then hard work out through these S's.
What time did you say Jones was lapping?
He's down to about a 13.7.
I've got the clock on Fitzgerald at the moment. It'll be interesting to see just how quick he's going, because he's made up an awful lot of ground.
Well, you can see when he starts locking up brakes going through those S's that he's pushing pretty hard, and we have a visual idea here of just how hard he is pushing, because he's closed the gap. Look at Leo underneath Mike Glynn. He's not content to sit back at all, and Des Gibbs there in the background.
1 lap to go for the leader.
Fitzgerald pushing very hard then when the car wandered wide of the apex. Bit of a shame that we don't have Mark Gibbs here this weekend from Sydney, but he's had a very full program at Amaroo Park.
Well, 1 lap remains in the Yokohama Production Touring Car Cup here at Winton this afternoon. Youlden going through, still with Mike Glynn glued to him, meanwhile back in the lead.
Lap
There's
time
no doubt about that.
By the way, was 1:13.4.
It's about 3/10 faster than when I had the clock on Jones.
Yeah. It's not going to do him any good, because this man has survived the opening lap and been untroubled since, Brad Jones.
I reckon we might see something desperate from Mike Glynn underneath Kent Youlden before this race is out, as Brad Jones comes through the right-hander to make his run out of Castrol and down the back straight for the last time. It's a fairly large gap, as you can see. Well, there's the bunch. Kent Youlden, Mike Glynn trying to get a tighter exit and sneak underneath the Commodore, but it's got plenty of punch in a straight line.
Geoghegan's the one.
Yes, and if anything, I think it's the other Starion that'll give him some curry.
Coming through the Ollie Essels for the final time.
While that's happening, the checkered flag's about to drop.
And the flag will go to Brad Jones. Make that 2 in a row today to Brad. Looks like Youlden's going to pick up second out of that. Glynn third. Geoghegan is fourth. And Fitzgerald will pick up 5th place. Well, a highly entertaining race, the Yokohama Production Touring Car Cup. Entertaining certainly in the opening lap of the race. Let's recap the placings for you. The win goes to Bradley Jones. Second spot goes to Kent Youlden. And third to Mike Glynn.